Welcome to this episode of Sweet Speak. I'm JD Miller. We continue on this great journey through AI. Up until now, I've interviewed Dr. Chase Cunningham about AI's impact on CISOs in 2025, Rez Razul, the CEO of Kwai, about personal AI, Keith Koo, tech investor, about AI for VCs, Andy Crestodina, founder of Orbit Media, about AI for marketers, and Matt Fernito, CEO of AI Advisory Group, about AI for executives. This week in my LinkedIn Live session, we dove into rolling out Gen AI to a massive organization, along with the future of Causal AI with John Thompson, Global AI Head at EY. This is one you don't want to miss. So when we return, my conversation with John Thompson. John and I have talked over the years at various events, and excited to have him here with us. He's the global head of AI for EY. And so what does this mean? John runs a lot of things: the Department of Ideation, Design, Development, Implementation, use of generative AI, traditional AI, and causal AI solutions. We're going to dive into that today. Across EY's service lines, operating functions, geographies, and for EY's clients. His team's built the world's largest secure private LLM-based chat environment. He also runs marketing sciences consultancy, advising clients on monetization strategies for data. Author of 4 books on data, including Data for All and Causal Artificial Intelligence. Welcome to the show, John.
Hey, JD, how you doing?
I'm good. So EY, your value comes from its intellectual property. And so data privacy and security are huge. So you were part of this rollout for ChatGPT implementation to hundreds of thousands of employees. First off, I have to ask, how much education did you have to take these people through before opening the floodgates?
Almost none.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, you said it in the preamble before we went live. You know, most people understand Gen AI. The beauty of Gen AI is that it's English, it's Hindi, it's Spanish, it's French, it's Croat, it's whatever language you speak. So, you know, for people to stimulate the models and do things, you know, we made an assumption that, you know, people are going to be interested, there's going to be great uptake, and people are going to play with it. So, you know, we said, you know, let's just get it out there. So, you know, a lot of companies are afraid and worried and concerned, and they should be. I mean, this is pretty powerful stuff. But we, you know, got the direction from our executives that they wanted our global employee base to engage with this stuff immediately. So we just hit the 1-year anniversary of our tool, which is called EYQ. Q from the James Bond Q character, quartermaster, you know, giving you all the fun tools to play with, fun weapons and stuff like that. So we measured it the week before its first anniversary, which was September 21st. It's available to 300,000 people, and we've hit 281,000 so far. So we're at 99.85% adoption.
So for organizations that want to have an initiative like this, who did you have to get on board first to say this is something that would benefit our organization?
We were very fortunate in that, you know, I'm coming up on my 2nd anniversary at EY. So just a few months after I joined, I got a call from it's called the General Executive, which is kind of a weird dystopian name, but it's the 8 people that run EY. And they said, you know, we want to talk to you about this new Gen AI thing. So I showed up at the meeting and we had a conversation, and they said, you know, we want everyone to have access to this as fast as possible. So it was the 8 people that run the company or run the organization. EY is a partnership, not a company, runs the partnership. And they said, look, we want you to get this done. And if anybody, you know, is a roadblock or a problem, you know, send it up to us and we'll make sure that it's cleared. So I didn't have to sell anybody. They just gave me a directive and said, go get it done.
Talk to me about use cases and the day-to-day benefits that people are experiencing.
You know, I was having a conversation with a young lady up in the Thumb area of Michigan, where I grew up, as a matter of fact. So, you know, we speak Michigander, so it was really easy and fun to have a conversation. And she said, you know, and this is a quote, this is not me paraphrasing. She said, I vomit my thoughts into a Word document And then I put them into EYQ and say, write me an email for this person. So, they just take all the thoughts and dump it in there, and it writes an email for them. So productivity, writing is one use case. Another is people are able to upload huge documents, and many of them. It could be contracts, it could be, policy documents, it could be both. And then say, compare and contrast. Show me where our contracts don't meet the requirements of the relevant policy documents. So compare and contrast. And then we have, in our environment, we have many models. So you can have OpenAI, all the ChatGPT models there, DALL-E, Codex. We're working on having, hundreds of different models in there. So it depends. If you're trying to develop code, you can use Codex. If you're trying to, do some imagery, you can do that as well. So the use cases are manifold. They're all over the place.
Let's take a step back and talk about data leaders. How do you think data leaders can have more of an impact today than in the past? It does start with those conversations with those operational executives, doesn't it? And in using AI to address some of their problems. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I was up in Wisconsin last week and having I was presenting at their annual executives conference, and many people would catch me in the hallway and ask me a variation of that question, which is, what should I be working on? What should I be thinking about? And I've said this for years, even before Gen AI. I said, look, you don't have to create problems. That's not your job. Go talk to your head of sales or the head of supply chain or the head of manufacturing. Have lunch with them. And I can guarantee you within the first 5 minutes of you sitting down and biting into your burger or your sandwich or your soup or whatever you're eating, they're going to start talking about the thing that bothers them the most. It's on the top of everybody's mind. They want to get past their frustrations. They want to get past their challenges. You just have to give them a forum for them to tell you what it is. Is it supply chain efficiency? Is it manufacturing yield? Is it pricing optimization? They will tell you. And you can work on those problems with traditional AI, foundational AI, Gen AI, and soon causal AI. And to actually put a finer point on the response to your question, a lot of people are saying, well, I don't really know what data to use. And that question just got even more complicated, because I was thinking about this as I was writing the 5th book. We in analytics have been working with, we say 10% of the world's information because that's what's structured. Really, we've been working with 1% of world's information because we sample 10% down, to a smaller amount. So now with Gen AI, we can use 100%. Virtually 100% of the world's information is now available to us. So people really have to open their minds to, what they want to do. Because there really isn't any reason for you to be not using, the structured information, the unstructured information, your contracts, clinical records, healthcare information, transaction, location, all that stuff's up for grabs now. So, there's no limits on what you do other than what you can imagine.
So I'm going to challenge you on that then. So
Please.
talk about those organizations that hold their real world data close to the vest. How can they test the waters when it comes to training AI models when they don't want people to deal with that or see that?
Well, let's be crisp with our language. There's lots of large language models out there from Cohere and Anthropic and Mistral and Google and all the big players out there. And testing a model when it's doing inference is quite easy. You can bring it in, you can have it in a private instance, you can send information in, you can get responses back. That's easy to do. The next step is if you want to take a model that's pre-trained and you want to fine tune it. That's a little bit more complicated than some people think it is. Now we're getting into the world of, we move away from large language models, and let's say we want to start talking about small language models or domain language models. Now you have the capability to train a model from scratch. Now that's complicated and it's a little hard and it can be expensive, but we've already done it. So we know how to do it. We can do it for you, on and on and on. And then I like to talk about tiny language models, which I don't know if that term's ever going to catch on, but those are the things we've been doing for the last 7 years, 10 years on natural language processing, natural language generation, natural language understanding. So we need to be clear in that, pantheon or continuum of models. Are we talking about large language models and we're just going to use them for inference? Or are we talking about domain language models we're actually going to pre-train and fine tune? And are we talking about tiny language models that we do everything with? So that whole range of models is available to us today.
It goes back to the question, who owns the data? Isn't that the question that's often put out there? It's a gray area, as
Yeah.
Fletch would say. How gray? Charcoal. It's gray. So who owns the data today?
Well, I'm gonna love the back and forth, JD. I don't think it's gray. I think it's black and white, to tell you the truth. I mean, my third book was a book called Data for All. It's over there on my shoulder somewhere. And the bottom line is, I think most people have been programmed to believe or led to believe that that is a gray question. It's not. It's black and white. You own your data. You do. When you go to Amazon and you create a transaction and you buy something, that data that is created is yours. Now, in the United States, we don't have all the tools and the mechanisms and the processes to be able to manage it as well as we could. But in the EU, you do. You can go to any company in the EU and say, I want to be forgotten. Now, within limits, they can't delete your health records and things like that. And they can't delete some of the transactions because of regulations. But the bottom line is, around the world, if you create a transaction, if you execute a transaction, you own that. And you have the right to access it and evaluate it and eventually have it removed.
So within an organization, then, who owns the data?
The organization does. If an organization is running
but would that be the CDO? Would that be, department heads?
No, the corporation as a whole owns the data. So let's say that you're running your ERP system, you're running you're getting raw materials in, your factory's converting them, you're making product, you're packaging it, you're shipping it out the back door. All that information in the ERP system is owned by the corporation. That's theirs. They created it. It was part of their operations. They paid for it. It's theirs. But if you and I interact with the system, the data that's created by that system is ours.
Got it. Yeah, because I know a lot of data leaders say, I own the data for the organization.
No, you don't.
Right. But that's, I guess that's my point. You don't really. And,
no, you don't.
That's where it's getting
definitely
grayer.
I've had these conversations, a lot of these conversations over the years, is that, I'm in analytics. Sometimes they put that in IT, sometimes they put it in strategy, sometimes it's in the executive office. And when I go and talk to, and my compatriots go and talk to the IT people who are managing the systems, they do say that, I own the data and you can't have it. And then I go to the CEO and say, Timmy's not playing nice. He hit me with his toy. And the CEO, sends an email and says, what are you talking about? It's not your data. It's the corporation's data. And if John wants it and he has a valid reason to have it, give it to him. And often then the IT people will say, okay, tell me exactly what data you want. Do you want customers A or customers B or customers in California or customers in London? And my response is, I want all of it. Right. And that's a mind-blowing experience for the IT people, because for analytics, how can I do my job if I don't have it all? And that is hard for some people to get their head wrapped around.
There's new Gen AI based products being released every 3 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me. How do I sort through all of that as a data executive? I'm still trying to do my day-to-day work, knowing these are going to save time, but there's just so many. How do I sort through it today?
The great thing about the models, the Gen AI models, the large language, domain language, tiny language models, is that they are coming out so fast, and they're all pretty much the same. The interfaces that go in and the information that comes out, this is probably one of the easiest technologies in the world, because, in our environment, we can just take a model and plop it out, put another one in, move it around. There's really no issue whatsoever. In our model garden, you can go in, any user can go in and change prompt by prompt different models. You don't have to worry about APIs. You don't have to worry about keys. You don't have to worry about all the other stuff that we had to worry about over the years, and loosely coupled and tightly coupled and all that kind of stuff. You can just swap models in and out. or you can actually make a model garden available to your users and just say, go crazy. So, the one of the things that I'm really excited about is that, over the last 2 years, we've gone through these whole things of retrieval augmented generation and context windows and doing all this kind of stuff. And the reason that we go through all this is we're trying to reduce hallucinations. We're trying to increase relevancy and accuracy. That's really all we're trying to do. Everybody gets all wound up about it, about the technology and chunking and, and indexing and all this kind of stuff. The bottom line is we're just trying to get these models to tell us something that's accurate. So when you think about that, if that's really the case, and you see things coming out like Gemini Flash, 1.5 Flash from Google, the context window is 2 million tokens. I mean, 2 million tokens is enormous. So,
Right.
Instead of trying to index all this information and wrap it around a model, just put it all into the model. That's what the context window allows you to do. So what I've been saying to people is that, we train humans, we, put them through different conditioning, we do all sorts of things, and people forget and they make mistakes. And I mean, we're human, everybody does that. But I say, well, why don't we teach the model or treat the model just like a person? Why don't we put in all the training information, all the policies, all the procedures, and prompt the model just as if it were a person? You know what? They actually work better than people. They don't forget. They always do the same thing for the most part within a range of probability. And I think the context windows broadening. We're up to 2 million. Soon it'll be 10 million. You'll be able to put, the entire corpus of a certain subject area into a model as context. Makes it pretty easy.
Right. So talk to me about causal AI. You wrote a book about it, and you've got another one coming out. Causal versus Gen AI. So the future of large language models, simple tasks. You've used the example before of booking travel as being one of them. The future really could be in causal AI, as you've written before. Talk to me about the differentiation and where you see it going.
Yeah, I really think we're on the cusp of something truly unique and different. Causal AI is, we've had foundational AI, the predictive, prescriptive, all the things that we've known for years. We're now in the era of Gen AI, of course, and Gen AI is taking up all the oxygen in the room. It's taking up most of this conversation as well. But causal AI is really coming into its own. Judea Pearl out of UCLA and all his compatriots have created this whole new branch of calculus. And we've got companies like Geminos and Causal Lens. And I've been looking at those guys for quite some time now, and they're moving quite nicely into commercial software. So you're now getting a user experience where I wouldn't say mere mortals, like business analysts and folks like that. It's a little bit harder than that. But certainly data scientists can go in, and we're now seeing a real interesting synergy. One of the hardest things for people to do is to come up with a true causal pair. This caused that. You always hear these stories about, firemen cause fires because there's firemen are always around fires. So firemen must be the cause of these fires. Well, that's not a true causation. It's just not the way it works. But, it's hard for people to get, everybody understands correlation, this and that, and they're related and there's some probability. But causal pairs now, it's easier to generate them because by implicit or just by happenstance or however you want to think about it, Gen AI has ingested all the world's information about causality, or a great deal of it. So Gen AI is really good at generating causal pairs. So you can use Gen AI as a front end to generate your causal environment and feed that into causal AI. Then it does a really good job on mathematically proving that it's right, generates the structured diagrams that you want to use. And then you run the system and it says, okay, here's the confounders, here's the conflicting, here's the true causal, and here's how this system actually works. So what we're going to see what we see it today in beta tests and alpha tests and early stage stuff is Gen AI being used for early data preparation and generation, feeding into causal systems, and then causal systems being used for interventions in marketing and manufacturing and different things like that. So causal AI, the calculus that we have and the products that are coming forth now are codifying and making this causal calculus accessible to us. I mean, I don't think most people think of it this way, but that's really the job of technology, is to take scientific insights and build systems and procedures and interfaces so people can actually manipulate the math and the science in a way that it works for us in our professional lives and our personal lives. So I'll stop there. I'm sure I generated a billion questions, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, I love how you talk about how it could build together. Talk to me more about why causal AI isn't more widely accessible or more widely used yet.
Yeah, it's just coming into its own, JD. The calculus was just proved maybe 5 to 7 years ago. Amazon and Microsoft, went off and, like they always do, competed against each other in this nascent field, and they both found out, well, you got a little bit, I got a little bit, and it's not really going as fast as we want, so we should mash it together, which they did a few years ago. And now you've got these early stage tech companies that are working on it and trying to make it accessible. So it's just an evolution. It's one of those things that, just like predictive AI was a slow roll, how many AI winters did we have from 1960 until 2004? 5 of them. We can do another show on what the cause of all those AI winters was if you want. But finally, my assertion is that those winters were caused by symbolic AI and the limitations of symbolic AI. And I'm sure Gary Marcus's ears are burning somewhere. But then neural networks broke out, and nobody really understands, or the general public doesn't understand, the difference between symbolic AI and neural networks. But they're always conflated for some reason, but they're not. Symbolic was a problem. Symbolic has a great deal of value. It's just limited in what it can do in its scale. Neural networks allow you to get in and understand the data and leverage scale and things like that. So the evolution of predictive AI is similar to what we're going to see in causal AI. Gen AI is an outlier. This whole thing of, you took a neural network and you smash the entire data of the internet into it and magic happens. That's not going to happen with causal AI. It's just not. It's going to take 3 to 5 to 10 years for that to take off. So, in the near future, I think my new book will come out probably March of next year, and that is a treatment of foundational AI, generative AI, causal AI, and what I'm calling composite AI. So composite AI will be with us probably in 2 to 5 years from now, and it'll be all those things put together. So, end users and executives will come to people like you and me and other technologists and analytics professionals, and they'll explain what they want to have happen. Just in language, they'll just talk about what they want to have happen. Then we'll go build applications that have all three of those engines behind it, and we'll provide a conversational window to those users, and they'll just type in what they're thinking. The orchestrator will tear that prompt apart, will send it off to those three different engines, will bring all the results together, put it into a nice package, and send it back to the users. So we're very close in historical terms. We're very close to having something that is the composite AI application that we've all been dreaming about. At least I've been dreaming about it. So
I like this promise, the composite AI, because it hits every industry. Talk to me about, as this comes to fruition in the next few years, how's this going to have an impact on jobs? You always hear that, right? But how could it have a positive impact as well?
It will have definitely a positive and a massive positive impact on jobs. I grew up in Michigan, around the auto industry, when the, auto industry was not as good as it could have been. And I saw, firsthand, the impact of people losing their jobs, the breadwinners, the single breadwinners losing their jobs, and what hardship that created to families and communities. And I'm sympathetic and empathetic to that change, and to, the economic, vagaries that are pushed onto people. So people who are probably a little older in their career and don't have the interest in learning new skills will be hurt by Gen AI. There's no doubt about it. There will be jobs lost. Let's not sugarcoat it. That will happen. But the more mechanistic jobs, the travel agent jobs, the data entry jobs, those kind of things, the comparing two documents, a lot of lower stage legal jobs, those jobs are going to go away. Gen AI will do that work and do it quite well and do it much faster than anybody could do it. But we are going to see millions of jobs, tens of millions of jobs created in related to model building, model construction, model management, application construction, analytical work, data management, data integration. There will be tens of millions of jobs created in those areas. So it is a steady evolution of the economy, from human muscle to animal muscle to steam power to electric power to information to knowledge to intelligence. And we're in that evolution going from information to intelligence. And there's going to be winners and there's going to be losers. And the losers will be mostly skewed to people later in their career, and the winners will be mostly skewed to those earlier in their career. This is no different than any other transition that we have seen. But if you go back and look at the jobs reports and the economic predictions from the World Economic Forum, Gartner, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, a number of reputable large research firms, the numbers are clear. The net jobs created are going to well outweigh those that are lost.
Last question for you. And you got your fifth book, as you mentioned, coming out potentially in March, talking about the composite AI. Give us a teaser of what we can expect in this book and where you're going to be going with it.
Yeah, it's turning out to be kind of a War and Peace book. I think my publisher's getting a little worried at this point. But it's, the first section is a single chapter talking about the things that you brought up. Data. What's the new world of data look like? And what do you have to do to get ready for AI? Then that's a section. The second section is about foundational AI. And the other sections are structured in history, impact, future. So you got the second section, which is foundational AI. You have the third section, which is generative AI, which I just wrote. The fourth section is causal AI. And the fifth section is composite. So, of course, composite, that section won't have a history because there is no history. There'll be impact and future. And it's turning out that it'll be, probably be a 350, 400-page book. So every book that I've ever written, if you've ever read them, are all how-to books. So I don't really expect anybody to sit down and start at the preface or prologue and go all the way to the appendix. Most of them are reference books. It's like, I need to understand, foundational AI. Okay, well, I'm going to go in there. I need to know more about the history. I can refer to that. I really want to understand the societal impact. I'll go to there. Or I want to know what the future is. I'll go there. So the books are meant to be on your shelf, to be a reference to help you, understand what is happening today, what will happen in the near future.
John, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks, JD. Have a good day. See you soon.
Thank you to John. What a great conversation. If you'd like to catch previous episodes of Sweet Speak and didn't see it on LinkedIn Live, you can access those on jamesdwayne.com. That's DWAYNE, or wherever you get your podcasts. Sweet Speak is part of the James Dwayne Group network of podcasts. If you love this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners like you. Thanks for listening.